The Battle of Highbury. In 1934, England faced the reigning world champions Italy at a friendly at Arsenal's home ground, and within minutes, the game turned into something closer to a brawl than a football match. England's Ted Drake was kicked repeatedly, and Italy's Lewis Monti broke his foot early on, which only seemed to inflame tempers on both sides. Players traded elbows, late tackles, and open shoves throughout, with the referee losing control of large stretches of play. England won 3-2, but the match became remembered less for the scoreline and more for the sheer physicality that both teams brought onto the pitch that day. The Battle of Bern. This 1954 World Cup quarterfinal between Hungary and Brazil turned so violent that it later earned the nickname the Battle of Bern, and few matches from that era carried the same reputation for chaos. Rain turned the pitch muddy and tempers short, and by the end, 3 players had been sent off amid kicks, punches, and shoving matches that spilled into the tunnel after the final whistle. Photographs from the day show players and officials from both benches throwing fists in the dressing room corridor, an image that stuck with football historians for decades. Hungary won 4-2 on the pitch, but the fighting afterward became the match's lasting legacy. The Battle of Santiago. Played during the 1962 World Cup in Chile, this group stage clash between the host nation and Italy is often ranked among the most brutal matches ever broadcast. Tensions had built beforehand after Italian journalists published unflattering articles about Santiago, and the players seemed to carry that hostility onto the field. 2 Italians were sent off, one for a flying kick to an opponent's head, and Chilean police had to step in at multiple points just to separate players. English commentator David Coleman famously opened his broadcast by warning viewers that the match they were about to see was the most stupid, appalling exhibition he had ever witnessed. England versus Argentina, 1966. This World Cup quarterfinal at Wembley turned into a bitter, foul-filled contest almost from kickoff, with Argentina's captain Antonio Retin eventually sent off for dissent, though he initially refused to leave the pitch for several minutes. The delay sparked outrage among Argentine players and fans who felt the German referee had unfairly targeted their team. Off-the-ball incidents piled up throughout the match, including stamping and shirt-pulling that went largely unpunished. England manager Alf Ramsey later refused to let his players swap shirts with the Argentines, calling their conduct that of animals, a remark that deepened the rivalry between the two nations for years afterward. The Estadio Nacional disaster. In 1964, a World Cup qualifying match between Peru and Argentina in Lima ended in tragedy rather than typical on-field violence. After a Peruvian goal was disallowed late in the game, furious fans stormed the pitch, and police responded with tear gas inside the packed stadium. The panic that followed caused a deadly crush at the locked exits, and hundreds of spectators lost their lives that night. Though the violence originated in the stands rather than among the players, the match remains one of the darkest events tied to football from that century. The football war matches. In 1969, World Cup qualifying matches between El Salvador and Honduras grew so hostile that the surrounding unrest contributed to an actual military conflict between the two countries weeks later. Crowds clashed outside the stadiums, players faced intimidation before kickoff, and the atmosphere in the grounds turned openly hostile rather than competitive. While political and social tensions between the nations ran far deeper than football alone, the matches became a flashpoint that historians still reference when discussing how sport and national conflict once collided so directly. Argentina versus England, 1986. Remembered mostly for Diego Maradona's Hand of God goal, this World Cup quarterfinal also carried a rough physical edge, shaped by lingering tension from the Falklands War just 4 years earlier. Tackles throughout the match were sharp and often reckless, with both sides seemingly playing with more than 3 points at stake. Terry Butcher and Maradona exchanged words and shoves at multiple points, and the atmosphere in the stadium reflected a rivalry that extended well beyond the sport itself. The match remains one of the most politically charged and physically tense World Cup meetings in history. Netherlands versus West Germany, 1990. During this World Cup second-round match, Dutch midfielder Frank Rijkaard spat directly into the hair of West German striker Rudi Völler during a heated confrontation near the touchline. Both players were sent off moments later following a mutual scuffle, and television replays of the incident circulated for years afterward as one of the sport's most infamous acts of personal disrespect. The rivalry between the two nations already carried old wartime tension, and this moment added a fresh layer of animosity that fans and players on both sides remembered long after the final whistle blew.